Hello there, folks. I'm Wes Osborne. I'm going to get a few things set up here, and then we'll look forward to getting started in a little more earnest. And we know we have a few more folks that are joining us as well, so we'll give them a moment for that. So let me just get my slide thing switched over. We're so excited that all of you are joining us on such short notice. Really appreciate that. We do have quite a bit of content to cover in a very short amount of time. And so we may not have questions we may not be able to answer all your questions, but we will certainly try to get to what we can during this time. And then this is going to kick off a discussion that we are going to expect that will be going on for some time now. So this is definitely not going to be the only opportunity that we're going to have to talk about this topic today. So I'm going to get things just tweaked and dialed in just a little bit. All right. Well, again, so glad that you could join us today with your other friends here in the Innovative Users Group world to talk about a very special announcement that we have that we've actually been working on for some period of time. And we'll talk a little bit about why we're kind of putting the information out now. A little bit later, but it was kind of important for us to get started on this, but to let you know, it's also something that's been in the works and that your steering group committee has been working on for some time. We have several folks that are both that have been involved with this process on the IUG side and on the innovative side, and I just want to quickly introduce them. There'll be opportunities for you to hear from all of them a little bit later, but I started the world as a page, and so I put things in alphabetical order by last name because you just don't break that habit after you started it. So we've got Jeff Campbell, our IUG Vice Chair, Chair-elect, with us for a few minutes. He has to leave here in a bit, but he was able to join us here at the beginning. We have Eleanor and Sarah. They have been very involved, not just in this process, but in the process before. And really a huge thank you from me to them for all the work that they did previous to this and what we've talked about where we are now, the work that they helped make possible. Also wouldn't be possible without working with our folks at Innovative. And so I know I saw Tom earlier, and hopefully Tony's been able to join us as well. So they'll have an opportunity to chime in with a few thoughts about this process from their perspective as well. And then I'm Wes Osborne, and I'm your IUG chairperson. So let me just verify. Okay, our recording is still going. I wanted to make sure with that because we did have folks that weren't going to be able to join us live and in real time given the short notice, and so we do have a recording going as well. So what we are announcing and going to be talking about today is an IUG member exclusive enhancements process. So this is going to be something that will be available to all IUG members, but will be exclusive to IUG members. It won't be the only way that the innovative products get enhanced, but it will have some very nice features and things that I think will be beneficial from both an Innovative Users Group perspective and then the company Innovative itself. Wanted to talk just briefly about how we kind of got to this place. And it really started with a transition over a year ago. And one person who's not joining us from the Clarivate side is Whitney Murphy. Whitney Murphy worked with the Innovative Users Group to do a platform shift from Spigot to user voice. I think that happened sometime last year. And during that time, she also helped with a branding shift from Idea Lab to Idea Exchange. And this was primarily driven by some things that were happening within Innovative itself. And so I don't know, Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about this transition and then kind of where you're seeing this process that we're going to be talking more about today, where that's going? So if you're on with us, Tom, I want to unmute and share your thoughts there. That would be great.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning or afternoon, everyone. Maybe morning for some of you. I'm going to speak carefully, and Tony Minnick will weigh in if I get any of it wrong. In general, after Innovative merged with ProQuest and Ex Libris, you always get a period of system consolidation, and you don't need two different platforms for this or that. It takes a couple of years because you're playing out contracts and there's only so much shifting you can do at a time. But the underlying platform for the Idea Lab at the time, when that contract came up for renewal, what we did is we shifted to a single platform, the one that, and it ended up being the one Ex Libris was using, kind of weighed the pros and cons of each. It wasn't meant to change the program or our commitment to the program in any way. It's been a great program for bringing us really customer guided development, and we want to continue that. It was really just a matter of making our lives simpler on the back end.
Yep. We have all been in those places, I'm sure, with our own organizations, so we understand that as well. The opportunity that gave us was not just about rethinking the technology related to enhancements, but also gave us kind of a chance to pause and think about the entire process itself. So how did communication happen? How did we get focused information back to Innovative? And then how did the commitments about those things that kind of went through a vetting process of some sort end up playing out in the long term? So it gave us an opportunity to rethink all of those pieces. It just seemed like a natural progression as we were looking at the technology. Although, as Thomas said, that wasn't a request from Innovative. This was really driven by IUG wanting to think and look at these things. I suppose there one technology thing, we no longer had the ability to do pairwise voting and things like that. And so there's another reason we kind of wanted to rethink the process as well. Tom, do you want to pause as well here and talk about any of your aspect of what this rethink made you all think about on your side?
Yeah, it was a really good opportunity. You know, it's healthy to come back and view these things. It's healthy to take a look, right? We now had a closer sort of relationship with the Ex Libris side of the Claravit library software group, and got a new appreciation for their approach. And so their users had introduced several years ago a concept they called NERS. It's new enhancement something something.
Request system. I have to do the same thing. I always have to think about it.
What it really is, and I think what we're looking at is, as Wes lays this out here, is Idea Lab and Idea Exchange is a great enhancement suggestion process. You make suggestions, you vote on them so that the kind of crowdsource the best suggestions to the top, and we review them and fulfill those that we can. What this new process, which is based on the NERS process, brings to the table is really a guided enhancement process. You're still going to make suggestions. You're still going to do your sort of crowdsource voting to sort of surface the most popular. And then we're going to review them, and you're going to tell us which ones you actually want, right? You're going to have this way to guide us to the ones you want instead of giving us a bunch of great ideas and crossing your fingers, hoping we do the ones you want.
Yeah. So that process that Tom has talked about, that is adapted from the NERS process, kind of breaks down into these 4 major components. We're talking with you today over a very short period of time and want to give you a good sense of what's involved, but there is lots of detail here that we won't have time to get into today, but hopefully we'll give you a good sense of what this process will look like. So it'll start with this group that we'll talk about how you can be involved with, called the working groups, selecting ideas, and then that group will take those ideas that have been selected and turn them over to Innovative and Tony's teams to point those ideas. So this pointing component really is an opportunity for Innovative to weigh in and say, oh, this is going to be, relatively speaking, more or less difficult, or is going to take about this much time. It's that estimation process that will occur. then those ideas will be returned so that the entire working group can take a look at those and say, okay, based on the information about how much effort it's going to take to get these ideas done and the amount of available points for this particular product, the group will then be able to vote to spend the points to have those ideas implemented. And they will be slated to be implemented within a time period of no longer than 12 months. And we'll talk a little bit more about the timings of all those things, because that's going to be very important as we go through this to make sure that we're getting the most effect out of this entire process. But the kind of difference that is significant from some of the things that were happening in the past was this delivery commitment as well that will occur. One of the things that was important for all of us is just having gone through a recent change from a platform perspective, we didn't want to lose all of the good things that are happening in user voice. So it's still the primary way idea exchange in that user voice platform is the primary place to submit new ideas that you have and to have those primary discussions about those ideas. It really is the intent that all of the ideas that will be voted on will be coming from idea exchange. There is opportunities for other things to get into that pointing process, but the expectation is that primarily what we'll be looking at is ideas coming from idea exchange that will then be kind of funneled down into these other stages of the process that we're talking about. Just to give you a sense of the products that this is going to cover, and when we talk about timing a little bit later, Tony, maybe you can also touch on this more to come question mark that we have and talk about some of the things that are involved in selecting which products are a part of this process. But we've got LX Starter, Polaris, Sierra, Vega Discover, and Vega Promote. And then when Tony talks with you a little bit about timing, she can maybe touch a bit with you all about how other products might be put into this agreement. The agreement is a framework that allows for other products to be added, but these are the ones that we are starting with initially. One of the things that I wanted to have you all be able to come away with this process is an understanding of who does what and the different parties, and then the ways that you can get involved with the different stages of the process. So your IUG steering committee, of which you have some representatives today on the call, are really going to be responsible for establishing the working groups. So the groups of folks that will be associated with each of those individual products that we were talking about that are in the agreement. So the steering committee, that will be the steering committee's responsibility to help make sure those working groups are established and kind of functioning well. We'll also be responsible for setting up your primary voting methods. So the ways that you will ultimately then, once the ideas come out to the whole user group, that you'll be able to vote on them. We will be establishing that process for you as well at the steering committee level. So no matter what product we were looking at or you would be participating in, you would see a similar working group structure to help with that initial refinement, and then a voting method that would be the same no matter which of those products that you were participating in. The responsibilities of the working group members, to let you know, that would only be IUG members. They would, but all IUG members would be eligible to participate in this. There will be a part of the voting process that we'll talk about that everyone will be, that only site contacts will be able to participate in, but the working group only IUG members will be eligible for this. Their primary responsibility is going to be selecting the ideas to be pointed, and then really working with the product owners to finalize that list of requirements. So when Innovative goes to point those out, they'll have a real good sense of what this thing is going to do. Sarah, I was wondering if maybe you could touch a little bit on the importance of the working groups and encouraging folks to participate in this part of the process.
I just really wanted to encourage people to volunteer to participate in the working groups. We are going to need representatives from small libraries, big libraries. If you have someone on your staff that's really passionate about Sierra or a Vega or a Polaris, have them volunteer for the working group. We don't want to hear just from academics or just from huge public library consortia. We want to hear from everyone and have, everyone's voices represented in the working group. So I strongly encourage you to, throw your name out for that. And just, like I said, anybody. If it's your first time volunteering, that's great. We want to hear from you.
Yes, and it's a great way to get started on an area that's maybe a little more focused than some of the areas that you might have to volunteer. It really will be on these products, and a great opportunity for you to help. And you'll have a good starting point with all those things from idea exchange as well, right? So you also won't be staring at a blank slate saying, what do I do next? It's a good place to get started. So as Sarah said, please get involved in the working groups. They're going to be vitally important to this entire process. And we'll tell you how you can get involved with that just a little bit later here as well. The innovative product owners, their role and responsibility in this process will really be working with their development teams to point the ideas. And that is, again, giving an estimation of the amount of effort that it would take to implement those. And then they will be responsible for making sure that the final selections are implemented. So those things actually do get developed into the products. The role for all IUG members will be to submit your ideas, as we talked about, into that idea exchange, because that's going to be such the primary resource for the ideas that will be coming into this process, that will be funneled down to this process. And then to make certain that when the opportunities arise for you to vote on these ideas to be selected and implemented, that you participate in that. So how many votes does each member get? Each IUG member, and this is the institution or organization, gets one vote. That is the way the agreement is laid out, and that is the way IUG membership works. One of the conversations that regularly comes up, I work with a public library consortia in Ohio, is, well, as a public library consortia, how come we only get one vote? Well, I think there's lots of potential reasons for all that, but we do have a mechanism where if there's an organization that has multiple folks under it that want to participate, those individual member libraries can purchase their own IUG membership, and then they would get one vote in this process as well. There's nothing that would prevent them from purchasing their own IUG membership. So we have an area on their website where you can get started with that if that's something that you have a interest in, particularly for consortium. We mentioned earlier that we said there's only one vote. How do we limit within our voting system that only one institution can vote? Well, we make certain that only the site contact can cast votes. You can tell if you're the site contact in our membership system by logging in and looking at your profile. And if you see an option to manage additional individuals, then that means you are the site contact for your organization. If you do not see that option, then you aren't the site contact. And you want to talk about how you're going to handle that within your own organization. So you will see this if you're the site contact in your membership profile, even if you don't have any additional contacts. I mean, you would still see that option listed in your IUG membership profile. If you were the site contact, you could add additional individuals, not for voting. You would only be the one that could vote. You would be the site contact, and you would be the only one that could vote. One of the questions that has come up about site contacts in the past is when it comes to paying the IUG membership bill, that renewal information has traditionally only gone out to the site contact. I'm happy to let you know that we have added a new option into the site contacts membership profile, so you can specify a billing email address. In that case, if you were the site contact, you would get the renewal notice, but then whatever billing email that was listed in your profile would also get the renewal notice. So it's maybe a helpful way to take care of those situations where we've heard requests from members that have said, well, I need my billing person to be the site contact so that they can get the renewal notice. Now you could be the site contact, so you would be able to do the voting process, but you could set up a billing email to get the notice, and then anybody in your organization can actually pay your IUG membership. This slide deck will be available after this session ends, and there's a link there, and it's also in the contact area on our website, where if you need to change your site contact, there's a form where you can do that as well. So you'll be able to use that form for that purpose. A big part of what's going to make this all work even better is going to relate to the timing of when things occur. And this is one of the reasons that we're sharing this information with you during the holiday. We got to the place with Innovative where we kind of nailed down the components of the agreement that we needed to. And so we then said, okay, well, let's think about how we're going to get started and when we should get started. And the response that we all had from that when we should get started was, well, pretty much right now. So one part of that timing to make you aware of before I turn it over to Tony to talk with you more about the timing aspect is that we have also agreed that any existing items that you see on the product board that are not yet assigned to an upcoming release will be returned to Idea Exchange. So this was an acceptance that maybe we were a little too eager in some of our other processes, and we really didn't have this pointing framework to kind of help slow things down a little bit if the development teams were overwhelmed. So we are going to be returning anything that is not assigned to an upcoming release to Idea Exchange. That doesn't mean that that thing can't happen. It just means that in order for it to happen, it'll need to be kind of pitted against the other priorities that the community has right now. So that will be happening as part of the timing for this process. You'll see that occur. And then, Tony, we want to talk about the advantageous ways that these working groups can get ideas in and when is best for them to get their ideas over to your folks. And then maybe you can talk as well a little bit about the potential for new products to come into this agreement at some point in the future.
Sure. Good to be with everybody today. So we're excited about the agreement that we put together. It's been fabulous working with the steering committee in working through this. I thought it was a great and constructive process. So for both Polaris and Sierra, we have 2 releases a year. We released our 7.5 Polaris release back at the end of October, and our 6.1 release for Sierra just was released last week. While we have 2 release cycles for both, they aren't exactly the same. So I'll start with Polaris. So Polaris starts developing the next release immediately after the release, about a week to 2 weeks after the release is handed off to everybody. And so we are actively coding our 7.6 release that will come out in the April timeframe. So we need to have ideas submitted, pointed, and ready to go, voted on and ready to go before the end of April. So we're going to need to start getting some of those ideas to point end of January, early February, to give us cycle time to go through and have time for you to vote on those. Okay. For Sierra, it's a little different. So Sierra actually has a longer engineering cycle because we go through a full regression testing. Sierra has a lot more configuration options and customizations, so requires a beta for many of the functions that we would address in Sierra. And so we go through a full regression and then a beta period, and then we release. So we are actually coding already 6.2, and it will be code complete in January. And then we go through a full regression, and then we start coding the next release. So we actually will need ideas for Sierra as soon as possible. We are going to set aside a bucket. So there's nothing that's going to take that place. But the sooner we have those, the better it is for us to be able to understand what the impact is to the next release, and what we'll have there and commit.
And on those Vega products that are out there, those kind of, one of the things that this agreement puts in place is a number of points per time. How those points actually get, the groups decide they want to, the working groups and those customers decide they want to move through them. It's optional to them, but you're talking about ways, Tony, that really help maximize kind of when folks would see these as quickly as possible. And I know on the Vega side, things kind of have move in a different world, given that that is hosted within Innovative's platform. So my sense of that process is that those can be a little more dynamic in terms of
correct.
when.
So
Yeah.
the Vega side is a little more dynamic. We're not slated into some finite timeframes, but we'll want to see those if you want them in the second half of the year, which is what we're slating these for, we'll want to get those ideas to us in a March, April timeframe, time for you to vote, and then we can slate them in. Again, we will set aside bandwidth for that development work, but we do need to have it as soon as possible so that we have the most flexibility to fit things into, it's like Tetris. Vega's like Tetris. So we kind of fit things in where we can.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question about the app, and I think this is another component, right, that we kind of hinted at. That there could be more to come, but particularly with some of those products that aren't 100% innovative in-house, things become a little trickier for some of those components, right?
That's correct. When we're partnering with somebody, we need to make sure that they're committed to this process as much as we are. So we have a couple of partners that we're talking to. One has already agreed to the process, but we need to get the language in the contract. Once the contract has been updated and signed, you will see those products. So that'll be Innovative Mobile and Vega Program will go on the list. That's already been determined that we're going to move in that direction. Just end of year contracts are hard to update, so it's going to be after the first of the year.
Yes, we appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Eleanor,
and Tony, just while you're unmuted, Carolyn asked, how does this new process interact with the existing Vega suggestion process? And I'm guessing she's asking about those Vega groups. I can't remember what platform it is that they're using. Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess development that comes out of that process, how does that tie into the development that comes out of this new process?
Yeah, so this process sets aside a certain amount of time for things that the IUG community votes on and wants to see in the product. We still have streams where we have a roadmap and we are evaluating what should be on that roadmap. We also, test our designs to make sure that they're usable, that we think that they have the right functionality in them. And so that process will remain. Now, if it happens that there's an overlap, then we put the things that we've been talking to in the strategic partner forum into the voting process, and we're probably well ahead and can size it or may already have it sized. And then we'll start to work on some other things that would take that place.
And I think there could also be scenarios where, if this process gets working really well and all the tooling is built up for this process, maybe components change with that long term, but short term, as you clearly defined there, Tony, there's a bucket for this, and there are still other development buckets for other components that are out there. It's not the only way that things can get developed in innovative software land.
That's correct. So we still look at idea exchange as well. So there may be room for other things that come into play.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for all that. We've had a question that gives us a nice little segue into the next components. How can you get involved? Most important thing is just reiterating that idea exchange is still a very important part of all of this. So making sure that you're submitting and voting on ideas and commenting on ideas there. Would love for you to sign up to be interested in a working group, and we're going to touch on that in a little more detail. And then we kind of need a name for this process. I mean, I really appreciate our friends over at the Aluna and Igloo users groups, but they can't have a name like NERS, and we don't have any name for our process. So we got to get that rivalry going and come up with a better name than NERS or something through all this. So we'll give you a way to let you know how you could participate in that too. So just as a reminder, again, participating in idea exchange means going to ideas.iii.com. You're voting and making sure that you are also using those importance areas, saying something is important to you, or it's a nice to have, or it's a critical feature for those. That is a very valuable signal in addition to your voting through this process. If you are interested in participating and being a part of a working group, there is a process when you log into your membership area where you'll see a list of working groups. You can click on a link that says click here to sign up for this project committee. You'll have the ability to put in any additional comments if you would like. The main one here would be if you would be interested in chairing one of these working groups. If you just want to put that into the comments area, that will be great. Then the steering committee will be getting together and kind of right sizing all of these, making certain that we've got good representations, as Sarah talked about earlier. So you'll be in a pending status initially when you go to sign up in this area, and then we'll let you know in the future if you've been accepted in this particular cycle to participate in one of these working groups. But you should see that in your member area as well. We mentioned that you can help us name this process. We'll post a link to our forum in various places soon. So there'll be a survey there with a couple of ideas that were internal that, are not that great, but they may be starting points to get your creative juices flowing. And then you can consider, there's a text box where you can let us know some ideas as well. A few final thoughts that I wanted to share, and then Eleanor, I wanted to invite Eleanor to share some final thoughts as well. This is a new process, right? So there's a lot of different components here to get worked out, both from a technology and process and people side. So let us all give each other a little grace during this process. There's going to be some bumps. We could use your help in figuring out what those are and working through those. And we really appreciate your kind of positive attitude as we get this going. The agreement itself has a provision in it where it will be revisited every 3 years. So if we feel like there's some major component that we need to address by revising the agreement, we can certainly consider that along any part of the way, but the agreement itself is kind of in force for the next 3 years. And we've already touched on this, but Innovative still has these other signals that we've already talked about, where development ideas and concepts will be going through those. They won't have the components of the kind of guaranteed delivery and such that'll be a part of this process, and the communication that'll be a part of this process. But they don't want to not be able to accept good ideas from anywhere that they might come. So Eleanor, do you want to take a moment and talk a little bit more about some of your kind of final thoughts being involved in this past 13, 15-month process?
Sure. Yeah, just very generally, I mean, it's been, one change after another for the last year and a bit. But everybody's really taken to idea exchange. It's very busy in there, and that's great. And so I really want to emphasize, don't let up on idea exchange. That's still the source, the well source of the new ideas for the most part coming in. We're in contact with a lot of the product owners, and they are, regularly going through those ideas, and they'll still be making selections from that outside of the IUG prioritization. So it's still really important to be submitting and voting and commenting, because they're still taking those ideas into account, regardless of whether they get into the prioritization process. But the huge benefit of the prioritization process is just this agreement, and that we know a certain number are going to be implemented within a certain time frame. And that's something that we haven't had before. So we're really excited about seeing that come into play. And as Sarah really eloquently said, please, if you're interested in getting involved, please sign up for a working group. There'll be a working group for each product that will be that's covered by this process. So pick the product that you are most familiar with or most engaged in at the moment, and please sign up. As Tony was explaining about the timing for this, we do need to spin up these working groups pretty quickly and jump in and kind of get started, especially for Polaris and Sierra. So if we get a bunch of names of people interested, we will be really happy to reach out to you soon and get started on that work. And the steering committee members will be engaged in that quite a bit, I think, especially at the beginning. To some extent, we're figuring this out as we go along, as we go through this first iteration of the prioritization process. So, we'll be working closely with the working groups, figuring out what the sort of day-to-day work looks like, what the time commitment is, and just making sure that we can get these ideas ready to be voted on in time to get something implemented.
Thank you. A few other quick plugs here as we round out our time. You can continue this discussion on our forum. I believe there's actually a post that went live during our discussion related to this. So there's a thread out there where you can take a look at that and add in your comments and your thoughts, and we'll post the recording there and the slide deck there. So it'll be available for you to look at as well. So you should see that if you go to the forum.innovativeusers.org, available to you now. I will plug as well that we have a forum topic, a Zoom forum session coming up later this, sorry, it went past there. I think it's got timing on that slide automatic. So for the advanced SQL, so that is coming up and is available to all members that would like to participate in that. The IUG conference is March 25th through the 27th. I didn't realize these auto timings were going to catch me the way they did, so I apologize for that. So that is available. The information about the hotel block is open right now, and the scholarship application just opened today. So if you would like to attend the conference, but you don't have the means, if you go to our conference website, you can apply for a scholarship for the registration and the hotel stay. You're still required to do the transportation. And I guess since my slide deck is forcing me to, I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you to Eleanor, Sarah, Tom, Tony, Whitney that was there before, Jeff, everybody on the steering committee, all of you that have been so helpful through all the parts of this, the various parts of this process. Thank you for joining us as we get so close to the holidays, just here kind of last minute. Really appreciate all of you. I'll be sticking around. We'll stop the recording here soon. So if you've got any thoughts that you want to share just off of the cuff, feel free to stick around and we can chat for a bit. But I wanted to, again, thank you all. Thanks to all those folks that have been involved. Hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and a great start to your new year. And we'll look forward to seeing you sign up for working groups and getting involved in this new process. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.